This week on The Word of the Lord Endures Forever, we continue working our way through Psalm 119 with great spoil and a lost sheep. And then we move to Psalm 120 through 122 with I am for peace, he who keeps Israel, and I was glad. Join me, Pastor Will Whedon, for The Word of the Lord Endures Forever, your daily 15-minute verse-by-verse Bible study on demand. Listen at thewordendures.org or your favorite podcast provider.
What did you steal?
Secrets. The data they paid me to protect.
Are they people?
No.
That is a bit of the trailer from the movie Disclosure Day. It has as its director and writer Steven Spielberg, who has dozens of films under his belt, a lot of them science fiction. This one leans pretty heavily into the nexus of science fiction, aliens, and God. Welcome back to Issues Etc. I'm Todd Wilkin. Joining us to review the movie Disclosure Day, Pastor Ted Giese. He has a bachelor's degree in fine arts. He's pastor of Mount Olive Lutheran Church in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada, and he teaches a course for Concordia Lutheran Theological Seminary called A Lutheran Approach to Art, Media, and Film. Ted, welcome back.
Thanks, Todd.
First of all, congratulations for being elected vice president of the Lutheran Church Canada. What does this vocation entail?
There's a couple things. It'll be a little different than what people have in the LCMS, let's say, or in different Lutheran church bodies around the world. But some of the features would be, we had some restructuring lately. So there is no, people might be familiar with the idea of like first, second, third vice presidents or like fifth vice president or whatever. There's only one. So this is the singular vice president for Lutheran Church Canada, working with the president of Lutheran Church Canada, who is going to be David Haberstock. He's the president-elect. We all begin our terms in actuality, I guess, September 1st. And the VP of Synod does things like he's on the PMC, which is the President's Ministry Council with the regional pastors. There's 3 regional pastors. So along with the President of Synod, then all 5 of us are kind of together as a unit, and we deal with things kind of almost like a presidium. And then there's also the VP's role as he's on the executive for the board of directors of Synod. So that's another role that he plays. And then one thing he'll do is he'll be a part of the colloquy committee. And there may be some other stuff that comes up, some other committee related work as well. But those are the key things. And if there's something that the Synod president can't do or can't get to, they may be called upon to do that. The other thing is that this is a position that is done from the parish. So you don't actually leave the parish when you're the VP of Synod. So the vice president of Synod can do this anywhere within Canada in a Lutheran Church Canada congregation. That's the, in a nutshell, answer to your question.
So let's turn to the film Disclosure Day. By my count, as either director, writer, or producer, Steven Spielberg has more than a dozen sci-fi movies under his belt, and just dozens of movies, period. As a sci-fi film, does he explore or break any new ground with Disclosure Day?
No, not really. This is not maybe the best of them. Yeah, you're right. He's done all sorts of things. I think people would know things like Close Encounters of the Third Kind from 1977. That was kind of like the big one where he starts getting into UFO kind of related stuff. People wouldn't maybe know about this, but he did do before he became an actual director, when he was still kind of getting rolling, he made a movie called Firelight, which is very similar to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. That's from 1964. It's kind of like more like a student kind of film kind of a thing. Then, of course, E.T., the Extraterrestrial from 1982, people would know. There is an element of AI, artificial intelligence, from 2001, which he kind of picked up the ball from Stanley Kubrick and ran with, that has things that are kind of alien adjacent stuff, particularly the way it ends. And then War of the Worlds, he took a crack at that H.G. Wells story. He made that film in 2005. And then he also made this Indiana Jones film, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull from 2008, where in the end, the crystal skull is an alien skull, or there's a bunch of them, etc. Anyways, that's a particularly goofy, kind of dippy Indiana Jones movie. The writer for that film, this David Cope, who's worked quite a bit with Steven Spielberg, he wrote the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull film. He wrote the scripts for that and for War of the Worlds from 2005. Interestingly, he also did Jurassic Park's script from 1993, and not a Steven Spielberg film, but kind of maybe interesting for listeners to keep in mind. He also did the script for Angels and Demons from 2009, which was the follow-up to the Da Vinci Code film. So there's this guy, David Cope, has this kind of background with Steven Spielberg and dealing with alien related stuff and or faith related stuff in film. And, and he's also the writer of this film. So are they breaking new ground with this movie? No, not really. It's actually, I found it to be kind of tedious and kind of boring. I didn't find it to be, it's nice to hear the John Williams score in there and everything, but it just didn't feel as, I don't know, maybe I was in a bad mood, but I just sat there in the theater and I wasn't on the edge of my seat. It was kind of supposed to be this thriller. So I found it kind of, dull in some ways. It has its moments, but it's a little dull. And then on top of it, it's kind of lost the plot when it comes to just the idea of how technology and communications works, because this is a movie where literally the whole thing could have been 5 minutes. I don't it's not, doesn't require having this big chase or whatever, because they're trying to disclose information that's on kind of encrypted special thumb drives or whatever. And it's supposed to be this cybersecurity hacker / genius kind of guy who's going to get this information out there about aliens. This is a disclosure day. The disclosure part is about aliens and government interaction with aliens. And in the end, spoilers, guys, we're going to deal with spoilers. He uploads it to mainstream media television, and then it goes on live feeds all over the place. Todd, I can go for days without watching any news on the television. He does show people on their phones watching these things, but it's the weirdest thing. Why wouldn't this guy be uploading it to, I don't know, some Reddit or 4chan or X or, formerly Twitter or whatever? It doesn't that seems it's doesn't make a lot of sense. So in some ways, I think that this means that it's directed at a particular age group of people, the people who are currently just still watching a lot of news, mainstream news, 24-hour news network stuff. There you go. We can carry on from there, but just some initial observations.
Take us through the plot, if you would.
So basically what you have is, it's kind of, although he doesn't do a really great job really setting this up exactly. You kind of, it breadcrumbed along the way, but it's set kind of on the back. It's the backdrop is there's a looming World War III kind of a thing. And there's this hacker, Dr. Daniel Kellner, who is played by Josh O'Connor. And he is working for this company. It's it's called WarX, which, listen, that's kind of thinly veiled. It may as well be called SpaceX, but it's called WarX. And it's this company that's kind of a government contractor company working with this technology, this retrieved alien technology. And he's been recruited into this company. He's discovered that they're doing all this. He feels very much that the world should know this information. He absconds with all of this information and with this one piece of kind of technology that they've got, there's recovered technology. And then he goes on the run and is chased down by Colin Firth, who plays this character, Noah Scanlon, who's kind of like the CEO or head of this WarX company. And it's a little cat and mouse game along the way. until he can finally upload it. Now, if you've watched the trailers for it, or if you've seen the film, you would know that there is a character named Margaret Fairchild, played by Emily Blunt, who's a meteorologist. She's like a weather anchor from Kansas City, Missouri. And she gets kind of embroiled in this too. This character of Kellner has a girlfriend who is kind of dragged along in the whole thing. And she's kind of an audience surrogate who needs things explained to her. And she's actually played by Bono, the singer Bono, his daughter. This is his daughter. So Eva Hewson is the name of the actress, and she plays this Jane Blankenship, who is a kind of like a lady who was going to be a nun, who then failed at being a nun, or like lost the calling to be a nun and left the abbey, kind of a thing, to go off on her own. So all of this is all happening, and they kind of all coalesce together for a big grand finale at the end. The MacGuffin is, the thing that they're all kind of trying to get is this piece of alien technology. Now they've got some more of it, but they don't want to have anybody just have one. And then also all of these disclosure videos and information, and they're trying to stop that from getting out in the world. And people have different reasons why they would find it difficult for that information to be out there.
So what does the technology do?
Well, it's kind of like a magic wand. Basically, you hold it in your hand. You have to very gently hold it in your hand, or it'll like zap you, and it lets you lie. Basically, in some ways, you can make things disappear. You can also possess people. Like, you can use it to possess other people's bodies in a limited capacity. You can use it to control people's minds. So it's just this chunk of what looks like stone or something, and you just hold on to it, and you can do all of these things, and it triggers people to be able to speak in different languages and whatever. So it's kind of like an all-purpose item that can be used to do pretty much anything you want it to do. But it is an alien, quote-unquote, technology.
This week on The Word of the Lord Endures Forever, we continue working our way through Psalm 119 with great spoil and a lost sheep. And then we move to Psalm 120 through 122 with I am for peace, he who keeps Israel, and I was glad. Join me, Pastor Will Whedon, for The Word of the Lord Endures Forever, your daily 15-minute verse-by-verse Bible study on demand. Listen at thewordendures.org or your favorite podcast provider.
Unity and variety can be a hot topic among Christians and Lutherans in particular, and the June-July issue of the Lutheran Witness takes this topic up with articles such as Unity and Variety Through the Ages by Richard Serena, Formed Together by Sean Dinzer, A Call to Faithful and Harmonious Variety in Worship, and much more. To get your copy, visit cph.org/witness or visit witness.lcms.org to learn more. The Lutheran Witness, helping you interpret the world from a Lutheran perspective.
Education, and edification. You're listening to Issues, Etc.
Nestled near the spectacular Santa Catalina Mountains in sunny Tucson, Arizona, Catalina Lutheran Church is home to confessional law and gospel preaching and Bible teaching. Join those whom God calls and gathers to receive His gifts for His divine service to us Sundays and Wednesdays and Bible studies most days of the week. Find us on the web at catalinalutheran.org. catalinalutheran.org.
Lutherans for Life provides unique gospel-centered, life-issue-focused educational resources, audio-video training, post-abortion counseling, and more from a Lutheran perspective. Learn about LFL resources and forming a life team or life chapter or becoming a life advocate by calling 888-364-LIFE or by calling 888-364-5433 or visiting lutheransforlife.org. lutheransforlife.org.
Welcome back. I'm Todd Wilkin. This is Issues, Etc. We're reviewing the movie Disclosure Day with Pastor Ted Giese. So, Ted, do the characters actually encounter aliens?
Yeah, of course. Do you remember forever ago? Now, listen, this is a weird thing. When I was a kid, And I don't know where my grandmother picked this up. I don't know if this is the Weekly World News or the Inquirer or whatever, but I remember her talking to me about this thing that she had come across. This would be in the early 80s, about how Richard Nixon, who was a big fan of Jackie Gleason from the Honeymooners, had been going golfing with him. And, because he was president, he could have access to Jackie Gleason. And at one point he told Jackie Gleason, "Hey, do you want to see some alien bodies?" And then Jackie Gleason was like, "Yeah, sure." So they go to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base or whatever, and he shows him these alien bodies, and it really like scrambles poor Jackie Gleason's brain. And eventually he builds a house in upstate New York that looks like a UFO. So I remember hearing this story as a kid, and sure enough, this story shows up in the movie. And the way that it shows up in the movie is that this is real. This is what happened. This is the thing that happened back then in the early 1970s. They don't use Jackie Gleason's name because maybe his estate didn't sign off on it or whatever. And they don't use archival footage of Jackie Gleason or Richard Nixon for that matter, but they do shoot it in such a way that you could kind of pick out who these people are. This is part of the disclosure in the movie. Do you remember this story from years ago?
Oh, sure.
Did you ever hear that?
Yeah, I've heard.
Yeah. So, he's basically including things like that and like the Roswell, New Mexico, like crash and various things that people would have picked up on just in what I guess would be generally categorized as conspiracy theory over the years. But at the current moment, you got like guys like Marco Rubio on like documentaries and people in Congress coming out and talking about government involvement in these things publicly. Currently, this is what's going on. So in a way, this is kind of set in this kind of public discourse that's going on from everybody from Joe Rogan to the Atlantic or whatever. Like this is something that's coming up. And listen, if you're a pastor listening to this, lay people listening to this, you may have been approached at some point. Somebody might have asked you, well, what about aliens and God and all the rest of this? That's part of this movie too.
So describe that for us. How does the God part come in? Is it explicit or is it just implied?
Maybe the best way to set that up is I found a clip from an interview that Steven Spielberg did. And also there's part of this just talks about what he thinks about the question itself of aliens. I found this from CBC Sunday Morning. So there's a little clip here that we can listen to so that Steven Spielberg himself can kind of talk about this.
The movie takes the position of the believers or the curious, the ones that have been deeply affected by this. The Emily Blunt character, she plays Margaret Fairchild. Something has happened to her. She has no idea what it is. She has to try to understand why this has upended her life. And the movie also takes the position of the church. What does this do to the fundamental beliefs that many of us have? And is God our God only on this planet? Or is God a God for every system where there's civilization, intelligent life, and even developing life?
Well, that leads to this seems a crazy question. Yeah. I can't believe I'm asking it, but I'm asking it seriously. Have aliens been here? And do you think they might still be here?
Based on the circumstantial evidence of everything that I've gathered throughout my whole life, everybody I've listened to, and every documentary I've ever watched, and all the testimonies in Congress that I've heard, I absolutely think that they have been here, and they are here, and who knows, maybe they've always been here.
Okay, what do you want to say about that, Ted?
Well, listen, the film itself doesn't get into the, I'm using air quotes, ancient aliens stuff. It also doesn't get into like kind of a newer version of this that's like just whipping around the internet is the Nephilim alien kind of connection stuff. It doesn't get into that. It's like a 2.5 hour long movie, but he says, well, maybe they've always been here. That's an interesting thought. And maybe we can unpack that a little bit further, but I guess he believes that in that wider part, the bigger part of that interview, he says he's never seen anything himself. Like he's not been abducted or any of that kind of stuff, but he believes that this is the case, that these aliens are are a real thing that people are encountering. And like he talks kind of maybe a little generally about God, when he was talking about the position of the church and everything and the questions that come up. But in the context of the film, really the only Christians you see are Roman Catholics. Now, granted, Roman Catholics make up just over half of all Christians. So, and they're also kind of visually easy for people to digest in terms of like, there's a lot of visual language. You can kind of like pigeonhole all Christians by some visual things like nuns and crucifixes and things like that. But he doesn't also include like rabbis and Jewish synagogues, and he doesn't include mosques and imams and Hindu temples and gurus, and he doesn't put any of that other stuff in there. Now, he himself grew up in a Jewish family, and they were conservative Jewish, folks in a lot of ways when he was growing up. Like there was kosher stuff and all the kind of things, major holidays. When he got married to Kate Capshaw after Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, or around that time, he kind of got reacquainted with his Jewish faith because she converted to Judaism. And, so he's got all of that stuff. He's a Zionist in terms of like Israel and like political things. He's not interested in them doing all of this by warfare, or, he wants to see all of that happen more peacefully. But this is his thing. So he definitely is quite Jewish. Now, if he has other ideas, I don't 100% know exactly what all of those are, but you can kind of infer certain things from the movies and, stuff that he's produced or been involved in making himself. So it's interesting that he does all of this. And if you've come across this online in different places, it really seems like he's targeting particularly Christians in terms of how this could like negatively impact their faith in terms of continuing to believe in God, or continuing to believe in God the way that they currently believe in God. He has not made this as a movie within his own faith tradition about like what this would mean to Jewish people who find out this information. And he's not doing this in the wider scope of things. This part of the movie is very specifically directed at Christians. So that is kind of rich. Like I personally find that to be somewhat offensive. Like imagine if you were going to make, like if the LCMS was going to make a movie, let's say, are we going to make a movie targeting another faith to try to like break their faith? Or are we going to produce something that says, this is the gospel, this is the law, this is the gospel, this is what it means to be a Christian, like come join us. Like this is like, it's kind of like negative apologetics in a way. It's very peculiar. Or maybe it isn't, and that's the sad part. But at this point, he's getting older, and the things that may have been subversively kind of there in his previous films, the time on the clock is ticking, and now the cards are on the table. So I think that you can take a look at what's in this film and you can consider it, and then you can have to ask yourself, like, why is this like this? What is the reason for this being like this? I think it's a legitimate question to ask.
Pastor Ted Giese is our guest. The movie Disclosure Day is our topic. I'm Todd Wilkin. You're connected to Issues Etc. Our Issues Etc. book of the month for June is called Lift Your Eyes, How to Live Outside Yourself. It's really just kind of Lutheranism 101 about how the Christian lives in faith before God and love before the neighbor, but it has a lot of practical advice for how to actually do that. There's a hint. It has to do with entering the life of the church on Sunday morning. Find out more about Lift Your Eyes, How to Live Outside Yourself at our website, issuesetc.org, or call Concordia Publishing House and order the book, 1-800-325-3040. We'll get some more pastoral concerns from Pastor Ted Giese, then Dr. Arthur Just will join us to begin the series on a life lived on the road to Emmaus. Stay tuned. What can we learn about the worship practices of the first Lutherans from a Reformation edict by a Calvinist leader? Find out in Will Whedon's column in the latest Issues Etc. journal. We'll send it to you for free. Just click the red journal subscription button at issuesetc.org and enter your email address. In the Wittenberg Trail feature, Pastor Michael Hughes writes about his journey from progressive Lutheranism to confessional Lutheranism. The Issues Etc. journal. Subscribe for free at issuesetc.org.
Criticism.
Thank God that it's 5:01 and the show is over.
Commendation.
I am not a Lutheran, but I regularly listen to Issues Etc. and thank you for putting this on the air.
Conundrum.
A Catholic friend has come to our LCMS church, and he said, "Why do you say very God, a very God?" And I couldn't think of a good answer.
The Issues Etc. comment line, 618-223-8382.
Hi, this is Pastor Clayton from Zion Lutheran Church of Muscuda, Illinois, a proud supporter of Issues Etc. Zion is a congregation firmly grounded in God's grace given in the Word and Sacraments, where we treasure the timeless beauty of the liturgy. Zion is also a vibrant, young, family-friendly congregation where you would be warmly welcomed. Zion is located at 101 South Railway Street in Muscuda, Illinois, and we would love to share God's gifts of grace with you. For more information, please visit our website at zionmuscuda.com.
Truth-centered mission outreach. You're listening to Issues Etc.
Concordia University Chicago invites all high school students to attend the annual Careers for Christ weekend in person on our beautiful campus in River Forest. Careers for Christ is October 10th through the 12th. You'll have the opportunity to learn about professional church vocations while having fun with CUC staff, faculty, and students. For more information, visit cuchicago.edu/C4C. That is cuchicago.edu/C4C.
Ministry leaders, are you dreaming of rest and renewal? Lutheran Church Extension Fund is offering church workers sabbatical scholarships for a third year. Ordained and commissioned LCMS church workers can apply for one of 6 scholarships worth $7,500 each to fund interim staffing, travel, or spiritual retreat expenses. The application deadline is October 31st. Download an application today at lcef.org/sabbatical scholarship.
Hi, I'm Pastor Matthew Harrison, president of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. We have thousands of churches and schools all across the U.S., large, small, and in between. We are the pro-life, pro-marriage, pro-family Lutherans. During the memorial service for Charlie Kirk, his widow Erica stated, "If you aren't a member of a church, I beg you to join one, a Bible-believing church." I agree. The Lutheran Church Missouri Synod is the ultimate Bible-believing church. We confess the truth of every word of the Bible. The basic message of the Bible is easy to understand. It's all about Jesus, our Savior. As St. John wrote, "The blood of Jesus Christ, God's Son, cleanses us from all our sin." Jesus comes for sinners. Jesus comes for you. To find a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod congregation near you, visit lcms.org. lcms.org.
Welcome back to Issues Etc. We are reviewing the movie Disclosure Day with Pastor Ted Giese. Ted, do you have any more pastoral concerns about the film?
Oh, I got piles of them. This movie, while I said it was kind of dull in a lot of ways, it's chock full of a lot of weird crap. And none of this stuff is here completely by accident. So, for instance, the two kind of central characters of this Daniel Kellner and Margaret Fairchild, it turns out that they had both been abducted at the same time. So they're both quote unquote experiencers. They also call them passengers. They're abductees, and they were both abducted at the same time, and they don't have memories of this. So there's this kind of trauma in their childhood that they can't unblock. So part of it is unblocking the trauma of all of this. That's one of the key features of this other character, Hugo Wakefield, who is involved with building a replica of the Margaret Fairchild's house to help her unblock these things. And essentially what you get there is like this weird stuff where the aliens present themselves as wild animals. Like, so they're obfuscating who they are. Like, they project into your mind that they're wild animals. And this is kind of weird because she also sings "One Day My Prince Will Come" from Snow White. And like in her house as a kid, like a 10-year-old or whatever. And she gets abducted by these animals and taken into the woods. And she goes to what they refer to as Hansel and Gretel's house. So she is Gretel and the other character of Kellner is Hansel. So like they're the kids in the Hansel and Gretel house. Well, they don't go into this part, but that's where the aliens are. And it's revealed that these elk or deer or whatever are actually the aliens, and they're being experimented upon or whatever. But if you know the fairy tale, what happens in Hansel and Gretel's, like the house from Hansel and Gretel, what are the characteristics of the house?
I think it's like a gingerbread house or something like that.
Yeah, it's all candy and gingerbread. But that is an illusion, of course. It's like it's made out of that stuff. But what is it hiding inside?
There's a witch, if I'm not mistaken.
And what is the purpose of the witch?
She wants to bake the children and eat them, I think.
Right. Todd, is this not weird? Like, so the aliens are in the gingerbread or the Hansel and Gretel house, but the aliens are supposed to be the good guys in this. Like, misunderstood, that they're helpful, etc. The whole thing is so weird. Like, this alien technology is used to like obfuscate things or to lie or to like so much of all of this. And it's about like disclosing a lie. But then the thing is any of this true at all? This is a question that it's posing to the audience. The character who's this nun, a failed nun, she has a mentor who's a nun. This sister Mara, and Mara, of course, means bitter. Here's this character, and they at one point they end up at the convent of St. Clare, so the monastery of St. Clare of the Dawn. This is like based off of Clare of Assisi, co-founder of the Order of the Poor Ladies, or the Clares, these nuns. And weirdly enough, Pope Pius the 12th in 1958 made this St. Clare of the Dawn, this Clare of Assisi, made her the patron saint of television and communications. Due to like this thing that happened where she was bedridden and she saw the mass projecting on a wall in front of her. Like, and this is all back in like the 12th century, through the 12th into the 13th century. So then she becomes the patron saint of television. That's, of all of the different things within the Roman Catholic pantheon of like monastic life, they choose that. And they have this conversation about like, well, does God love us? Is God just the one who loves us here? Or what about aliens? And what this failed nun talks about, you know, that these aliens, what if we're really presented with actual real divine beings? So the aliens are presented as divine beings who have something for us in humanity. It's all being hidden and it needs to be disclosed, and it might rock your Christian faith. And it's all kind of predicated on all these like lies and stuff through the whole thing. So pastoral concerns. Here's another thing that's interesting. The very, very, very beginning, as you first sit down in the theater, the opening scene is in a wrestling ring. And it's wrestlers. And this is kind of like WWF, WWE kind of style wrestling. So that is like a choreographed script of something that is already predetermined. The outcome is predetermined. Sorry for spoilers for people who love wrestling, but that's the way they design it. It's very athletic, but it's also very predetermined. It's all scripted in a way. So he's telling you at the very beginning, this is all scripted. All of this is scripted. So a pastoral concern is that people would watch this and be pushed into some sort of ontological existential crisis of some kind. And the Christian, of course, has been warned about this from the beginning, right? Think of passages like 2 Timothy from chapter 1. By the Holy Spirit who dwells within us, guard the good deposit entrusted to you. So by the Holy Spirit who dwells within us, guard the good deposit entrusted to you. So don't let like some deceptive thing throw you off. Or like in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, St. Paul also says, what I am doing, I will continue to do in order to undermine the claim of those who would like to claim that in their boasted mission, they work on the same terms as we do. For such men are false apostles, deceitful workmen, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So it is no surprise if his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness. Their end will correspond to their deeds. And then Jesus himself in John chapter 8 says, you are the father of the devil, and your will is to do your father's desire. He was a murderer from the beginning. He does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. So if this is a big lie, or if this is a misrepresentation of something that is happening, why? Steven Spielberg clearly believes that there is such a thing as aliens. Now, there could very well be some sort of something. It might not be what he thinks it is. But why is he doing what he's doing? And I think that is a pastoral concern that everyone who watches the film should ask themselves. What is the purpose of this film? If the purpose of this film is to shake your faith or cause you to not believe in Jesus anymore, then don't fall for it. For the guy that made the movie Jaws, right? This is chum in the water. Don't take the bait. Keep swimming. Keep in your faith. Deal with these things as they come, but interrogate them. Like, do not just believe all of this stuff at face value. Even in the course of the film, there's points where they say, well, is this AI generated imagery? Of course, that's a good question to ask, but there's a lot more that could be said about it. But I guess, and there's lots of layers to this. There's also other government weird things like, and if you've come across this before, like there's all sorts of butterfly imagery at different points, which is kind of weird and telling. Nothing in this film is there by accident or by mistake. It's there for a purpose. The people who put it together know why they're putting it in there. Cynically, I would say that some of it is there just to generate a free advertisement for the product, because people are going to catch things. They'll take the bait and then they'll make big, long YouTube videos or whatever that will then get the name out there to get people to watch the film. But I could save a lot of people a lot of time and money and just say there are better Steven Spielberg movies to watch. And it's not mandatory that you would go see this, even if you're a fan of his. So hopefully this is helpful for anybody who has already seen it, and maybe helpful for those who were kind of on the fence or thinking about it.
One quick question, Ted. Do you think that accounts for why the movie is slow and pedantic with about 1 minute?
Listen, I don't know the particular term for this is, but like stage magicians have various things. I should have looked it up, but they have various kind of things that they do. So there's a sleight of hand thing. It's like there's a distraction thing while the other thing is going on. I think that this movie is doing that too. There's a lot of the other thing going on in this movie, but the movie itself is kind of like the sleight of hand where it's, don't pay too close attention, but here's this stuff. So it's all kind of getting like poured in as you're watching it. But it is like the hotel rooms and the office spaces and the clothing and the lighting, and just so much of it is so terribly boring, and it doesn't have like kind of the flair visual style of something like Jurassic Park or Indiana Jones or any of that kind of stuff. And the conclusion is so, like I said before, it's so dumb and just dumb. If you want to compare it to something like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, it is so far from the mark compared to the conclusion of that film and the way this one, it's very anticlimactic in a lot of ways. And maybe that's part of the point, I don't know. But I think that it's something that probably for research purposes, I may have to watch again and kind of dig even deeper into what I'm looking at.
Pastor Ted Giese has a bachelor's degree in fine arts. He's pastor of Mount Olive Lutheran Church in Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. He teaches a course for Concordia Lutheran Theological Seminary called A Lutheran Approach to Art, Media, and Film. You can read his movie reviews on the Talk On Demand archives page at issuesetc.org. Ted, thanks.
Thank you.
Dr. Arthur Jess joins us next. He has a new book, Ever to Emmaus, a theological memoir. We're going to talk about a life lived on the road to Emmaus. What did Martin Luther mean when he wrote that Christians live in Christ through faith and in the neighbor through love? And what's the difference between self-improvement and self-transcendence? Find out in the Issues Etc. Book of the Month for June, Lift Your Eyes, How to Live Outside Yourself. Learn more and purchase Lift Your Eyes at issuesetc.org or by calling Concordia Publishing House 1-800-325-3040. Lift Your Eyes, How to Live Outside Yourself, the Issues Etc. Book of the Month for June.
Does this sound like your church budget process at the end of the year? You get last year's budget and go through with a committee line by line, maybe what we should spend next year. Maybe you have a prayer. But where's the Word of God in this process? When do the people hear what the small catechism says about giving and why we do it? Contact us at LCMS Stewardship so that we can help you fix this process, put the Word of God first, and put your congregation on a good footing. lcms.org/stewardship.
We love our on-demand listeners. You're listening to Issues Etc.
Are you looking for a confirmation gift for the confirmand in your life? Ad Crucium has a huge selection of lovely gifts to suit any budget. See our jewelry or browse our prayer aids with stunning icons, plaques, crucifixes, and certificates. Our personalized ornaments and boxes are other great ideas. And of course, our theologically sound greeting cards complement the gift perfectly. Visit adcrucium.com. That's ADCRUCEM.com.
Luther Academy provides additional theological education for our mission partners around the world, specifically pastors who are asking for additional education but do not have the necessary resources in their own church bodies. By donating to Luther Academy today, you will be supplying food, housing, books, professors, and travel for Lutheran pastors who attend our conferences. To learn more about Luther Academy and how you can donate today, visit lutheracademy.com. lutheracademy.com.